What's going on? When he refuses to get out, we finally see another officer approach with that axe, crashing the window, smashing that window. That's when you hear children react as they do, and they tase him and finally get him out of the car. These people have now filed a lawsuit against the police department saying, alleging excessive force, using the taser. They were assaulted by the police officer. Police officers say, we saw him moving for something, and there could have been danger involved, so we had to get in.
They made a statement. Just quickly, because I want to get our lawyer's take on it. The statement from the police department.
Oh, well, we tried again. That didn't work.
Wow.
We have to make sure and fix
I wonder what that's all about.
Some technical difficulties. We're gonna take care of that.
Well, you heard this. You listened to that.
Yeah.
Before, so that's a reporter.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
You want to read this article? Should we talk about this?
Yeah.
St. Louis explodes once again as police shoot and kill 18-year-old black male who cops say shot at police. St. Louis was the scene of angry protests once again Wednesday night after an off-duty police officer shot and killed an 18-year-old African-American teenager who the officer said fired 3 shots at him. Though local residents say the teen was only carrying a sandwich, it was painfully familiar scene in the aftermath of the shooting as angry crowds took to the streets to express their outrage. The shooting victim was identified as Von Derek Myers, according to Tiana Myers, 23, who told the police, or the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, he was her cousin. He was unarmed, she told the paper. He had a sandwich in his hand, and they thought it was a gun, like Michael Brown all over again. St. Louis Police Chief Sam Dotson quickly tried to get in front of the story, holding a news conference to give the police officer's version of the events. The officer was identified only as a 32-year-old, 6-year police veteran. After the Michael Brown shooting in August, Officer Darren Wilson wasn't identified for nearly a week. The shooting occurred in the Shaw neighborhood of St. Louis in the southern section of the city near the Missouri Botanical Gardens. The officer was working off-duty for a private security firm, and he saw 3 black males who he said started running away from him. Dotson said the officer, who was still in uniform, started chasing them. Dotson said one of the teens approached the officer in an aggressive manner and refused to stop or surrender. But St. Louis Police Lieutenant Colonel Alfred Atkins told reporters that the officer was able to follow one of the teens before he lost him and then found him again as he jumped out of some bushes across the street. Hooded sweatshirt, and the young man ran away, grabbing at his waist. Dotson said the officer felt the teenager was carrying a firearm, but did not open fire because he wanted to be certain it was a gun. But he said the teen turned and pointed the gun at the officer and fired at least 3 rounds at him. Dotson said the teen tried to continue firing, but his gun jammed. In response, the officer, who had not been hit, fired at least 17 rounds at the teen, killing him. Dotson said a 9mm Ruger handgun that allegedly belonged to the teen was recovered at the scene. Something sounds weird. He also said a forensic search located 3 bullets that had been fired at the officer. An investigation will decide if the officer's behavior was appropriate, the police chief said. Dotson also praised his department for the response to the angry crowd of at least 200 protesters, saying they showed a tremendous amount of restraint despite the damage to police cars. We will do everything we can to support everyone's right to protest and allow their voices to be heard as long as it doesn't infringe on other people's rights, Dotson said. According to a tweet from St. Louis Alderman Antonio French of the 21st Ward, who had been closely involved in the protest after Brown's killings, the victim's mother fainted when she arrived at the scene of the shooting. An ambulance came to attend her, French tweeted. There's nothing like a mother's pain at the loss of a child. The protesters smashed the windows of several police cars, according to published reports, as many shouted, "Hands up, don't shoot," referring to the fatal shooting in August of Brown, about 16 miles away. They also shouted, "We're young, we're strong, we're marching all night long," and "Fight back, fight back." The demonstrators claimed that Myers had been shot 16 times. A sandwich or a gun? What do you look and what are you thinking?
You know, I don't know what else to... Well, you know what? I think we can't jump to conclusion.
Right.
Because if the kid had a gun, that's problematic. If there was no gun, that's problematic too as well. So, rather than to give an uninformed opinion, I'd rather wait to see if they really have.
Well, I like to see if the media jumps all over this.
Oh yeah, they're gonna jump all over it.
I don't know. I mean, it's like certain things are in the headlines. You know, one week it's ISIS or ISIL or whatever, and then now it's Ebola. So it depends. I mean, you know, I didn't see the local news or any national news today. So,
but you know something? As you say, Ebola, you really didn't hear much about that Nigerian guy all over the news, though. Did you hear a lot about him in the news?
Other than the fact that, you know, this guy came in and he has Ebola and...
You didn't really hear much about it. At least I didn't hear much about it. You know, but I think what happens is that the media decide. And then there were the 3 white individuals that got ZMAP and the other drug.
Yes.
You know, and this poor guy from Liberia, you know, is getting IV.
Yes, turned away from the hospital.
He was getting an IV and he was sent back home. You just came from West Africa. Go back home. You know, and this is something that's been happening.
Well, I mean, there's something going on. Well, I mean, it's some news tactic, obviously, again, with the idea of the media existing in order to make a profit. So there's this scaring of people right now. People are afraid. People are afraid. You know, diseases have crossed borders and oceans for centuries, right? But now people, I don't know, I guess because people aren't looking at it in any historical perspective, they think that this is something new for a disease to come over. But now they're, you know, want to take people's temperatures when they get off the plane or ban flights from West Africa, from what I've understood.
You know, do you think this Ebola thing is a conspiracy theory?
I don't know. I mean, of course, there's going to be always someone to say that this was planted.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
There's
this report in
it's regarding
online.
Ebola.
Yeah. It's called the Black Agenda Report. It's a Freedom Rider, the real Ebola conspiracy.
You're looking like you, but do you believe it's a conspiracy? Before you read this article,
yeah,
do you believe there's something conspiratorial?
Yeah.
So what might, dare you speculate on the air what this conspiracy is? Or do you want to pull it together before you do that?
No, I don't want to pull it together because last night I actually had done an article with like 10 conspiracy theory. And this
all of them
article,
regarding this or other conspiracies?
This article says something different. Because the article last night said the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, they had a patent over the Ebola virus.
A patent to destroy the disease? Or?
I mean, it was created in a lab somewhere, they said.
So you don't think it's about bush meat or any of that other stuff?
But this article says differently. So that's why there's...
Where's the article?
It's in the Black Agenda Report.
You are like all over the place. So 1 minute I go to one spot. Let me see if I can find
Yeah, because you know what it is?
Black
to be honest
Agenda
with you,
Report.
I'm
listening.
I sit here and there is so much...
Information.
So so much information, so much research going on. That's why I know so much. That's why, you know, really and truly doing this program, you learn quite a lot about what's going on in South Orange and Mayport.
Right.
You actually do get, you know, your finger on the pulse of what's going on, because you have to kind of do the research in order to report the different news stories. You know, so This is the Freedom Rider.
The real Ebola conspiracy. Yeah. Who's reading? You?
Yes. You can go ahead. You can go ahead.
All right, and then when I stop, you can pick it up because I'll get tired. It would be redundant for the U.S. to weaponize Ebola in order to kill Africans. The monetary and foreign policies they... Yeah?
Is that the one by senior columnist Margaret Kimberly?
Yeah.
Where did you start?
This is where it would be redundant for the United States to weaponize Ebola.
I have a different one. Let me just see.
Right here.
No, that's not it. That's not that.
It says Freedom Rider, the real Ebola. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Let's see, I'll click on that. Weaponize Ebola.
Yeah, because what I have is, this is what I have.
I'm listening.
African countries are poor because they have been systematically looted by Europe, the United States, and the rest of the capitalist world for centuries. I guess that's part of the conspiracy.
Well, no, I don't know if that's just a fact. But
The ability to engage in critical thinking seems to be lost on the vast majority of Americans. When Americans don't like a president, they claim that his mother traveled all the way from Hawaii to Kenya to give birth to him.
What article? Where are you
Others
looking
swear-
at this?
Others swear that parents in Newton, Connecticut went along with a government plot and pretended their children were shot to death in school when they in fact still alive somewhere.
I remember that.
Ebola, now officially known as Ebola virus disease or EVD, has claimed thousands of lives in the sporadic outbreak ever since it was identified in the Congo in 1976. Scientists are unsure of its exact origin, but have hypothesized that its host is a forest-dwelling fruit bat. According to this theory, its bodily fluids can be spread to other animals and then to humans through physical contact. Past outbreaks have occurred in rural areas of Central Africa, but the first cases in West Africa, including urban areas, appeared in March 19, 2014 in Guinea and spread to Liberia and Sierra Leone. More than 7,000 have been diagnosed with Ebola and over 3,000 have died. African countries are at a greater risk of all manner of disasters because they are poor, because they have systematically been looted by Europe, the United States, and the rest of the capitalist world for centuries. There is nothing suspicious about disease emergence anywhere on the planet, and there is nothing suspicious about countries ruined by war and theft of resources being hardest hit when disaster strikes. And here's another one. The inclination to believe that Bill Gates and the Illuminati are controlling EVD doesn't lead to useful information, plan of action, or reasoned analysis. Because the other conspiracy theory that I read yesterday talked about Bill Gates. Actually,
what did it say?
If you go to
my computer is not.
If you go to the if you go to the Facebook page on Somo, I posted it on Somo as well. So let me just continue. No one should believe the government or the corporate media or any entity without question, but there is too great a tendency to want to believe outlandish assertions instead of easily provable facts. Despite what well-meaning social media users may say, the Center for Disease Control does not have a patent on EVD. In the article yesterday, I'm going to try to get that back. It said that the CDC had a patent on EVD.
Well, you know what I was thinking about? Why is everyone looking at the government as usual, or the CDC, Centers for Disease Control, rather than pharmaceuticals? And the pharmaceuticals are the ones that make drugs and have the scientists to and engineers.
No, you're right. Because
so, I mean, what about
here we go. Here we go. I just got it. Go ahead.
I mean, right. I know, like, what about them? I mean, like, where everyone's looking at the CDC. It's interesting how people always turn to government when things go wrong. But they're looking at the CDC to come up with an answer, or the federal government. But what about the corporations that will make millions of dollars off of, a possible patent to a drug